Dobar dan. I'm Melisa Bean, Melisa Luberic Bean, or Milica when I'm with my Serbian friends. Today we're here at a Serbian-American networking event, and I think everyone's enjoying themselves. I was asked to give you a little bit about my background. My background before I was in politics was in the business world. I started out in sales, and then from sales moved into management, and from management I went to start my own company, all in the high-tech industry. I'm dating myself to say that this was before PCs, back in high-tech when mini computers were replacing mainframes. And so in that environment I worked for various distributors, some large organizations like Arrow Electronics and Pioneer Electronics, selling systems to corporate accounts around Illinois, which is where I'm from, which is in the Chicago suburbs. I live in Barrington, Illinois with my 2 daughters and my husband. So one of the interesting connections that many of us have made at this Serbian networking event is talking about the things we learned from our parents and the Stari Babas and our family, and the common themes were work ethic. I think so many Serbs came to America to pursue opportunities available, and they worked very, very hard. And I think if you're talking about success anywhere in the world, but particularly in this country, it's not luck, it's a lot of perspiration, it's a lot of effort that has to be put in, regardless of what profession you're going to pursue. So we heard from a number of people today, myself included, who remembers working 2 or 3 jobs, or working 2 jobs while going to school full-time. Because I think we were all impatient to reach some level of success in our profession. I know for anyone that sells anything, and I think no matter what your profession is, you're always selling in some regard, you learn that every no that you encounter brings you closer to the next yes. And I try to remind my children of that, to not quit, to not back down when things seem difficult, but you just have to keep going, and you will achieve what you're trying to accomplish. So from that sales background, where I first did a lot of telemarketing, which was using the telephone to drum up business, and then outside sales, and then I moved into management, where I hired the team and I ran the profit and loss statement of the branch. I moved from there to then a VP of sales position, and then started my own company. One of the reasons I started the company was I had 2 daughters and wanted to spend more time with them. And in my own business, it gave me the autonomy to work when I wanted to work. And I also did some international consulting in that capacity, and the travel was something I wanted to do internationally instead of domestically, and it gave me the option to do that. And people say, well, how did you go from the business world to politics, and how did you ever get elected in the U.S. Congress if you hadn't held elected office? And I think that also goes back to the not backing down or not quitting. If you think you can make a measurable impact, whether it's in business, in politics, in medicine, wherever it might be, I think you have to pursue it. And so I did. I ran for Congress in the 8th District of Illinois, and was elected the second time I ran. Again, didn't quit after the first time, ran again, and was elected and served for 6 years. And in fact, was also the Democrat on the Serbian-American caucus while serving in the U.S. Congress. It was a very rewarding position, but I think it also points out that while people had suggested I was crazy to even consider running, you don't have to let other people to decide what your vision is going to be. I have a couple of points that I often recommend to young people. First, networking is important. Meeting with others, building relationships, strengthening those relationships, and then feeling comfortable asking for help from those that you've come to know when you need it, even if that's just to make an introduction, I think is critical. So networking is one of the first things I always recommend. Personal branding is also important, because if you're going to meet people, you need to leave an impression. What is the impression that you want to leave with them? What is the product, service, or value that you want them to know that you could make available? I think that's really, really critical. I think what's also important about personal branding is you have to be authentic. Don't pretend to be what you're not because you think that's what people are looking for. If you're true to self, I think people respect that sincerity and you create greater trust. The third thing is skill development. Particularly in this shifting economy, the skills required to be competitive in the future as individuals, as organizations, as countries are evolving. And so I think skill development based on a self-awareness that appreciates what do I know and what don't I know and what do I need to know to be able to achieve the things I'd like to in the future is a really critical self-assessment. And if you do that and you continue to evolve your skills to meet those future challenges, you will be better able to execute, not against just your own goals, but the goals of whatever organization or institution you might be part of. So the other skill set analysis that I think is also important is look at the company or the not-for-profit or the hospital or the school that you work for and look at what do they need to be doing to evolve and remain relevant and competitive and a leader amongst their peers, and are you adding measurable value to that equation? And that will also enlighten you in terms of the skill sets you might need to enhance to help make some measurable contribution. So networking, personal branding, skill development, but vision is most critical. You can't figure out what skills you need if you don't know what you want to do. So that's the first part of self-assessment that's critical, having a vision of what you want and then making sure that you ask for it. One of the questions that had come up with some folks recently was, is it different for women or young girls? And I talk to a lot of young girls, and I often tell them to ignore the cultural stereotypes that suggest that it's unladylike for them to take credit for their accomplishments. They should feel comfortable doing so, and if they have a vision about where they think they can be valuable, they need to communicate it. If they want a promotion, they need to ask for it. Too often I hear from women who say, I was doing such a good job, I don't know why I didn't get the promotion. And when I've encouraged them, because you didn't ask for it, and they've gone back and asked for that job, their superior said, I had no idea that you were interested in moving up. So I think it's important, while we think it should be self-evident, that you always ask for what you want to do. So we were sharing stories about our Serbian heritage and what the Serbian church has meant in our lives. For me, I practically grew up at Holy Resurrection here on Redwood Drive, also Serbian Drive in Chicago. My parents were active, my aunts and uncles, my kumovi were all active in the church. We spent time there on Friday nights for fish fries. At least the parents were having fish, and the kids, we were all learning tambura. We were in a tamburica group, and we were practicing together on Friday nights. It was a very social and very close time, and a time that I fondly reflect on in my life. And of course, we'd see those same people on Sunday at Sunday school and at church. And I think what's interesting is I married someone who's not Serbian, with a name like Bean, clearly. But he's always loved, we got married in the Serbian church, we've christened our daughters in the Serbian church. He's loved being part of the Serbian community, and because he married me, he was so welcomed into the community. And I think that's the best thing about being a Serb. It's a community, in any city I go to, if I run into a Serb and you recognize the connection, there's almost an instant hug. And it's a great community to be a part of. I think the American dream means different things for different people, but mostly it means having unlimited opportunity that you can pursue, having no one tell you what you can't do. You want to be a doctor? You study hard, you can go do that. You want to start a business? You can go do that. If you want to run for office, you can go do that. And along with that comes obviously some material gratification in terms of being able to buy a home, to send your kids to good schools, you live in a safe place. That's all part of it. But I think it's mostly the satisfaction of doing a good job and and not having any opportunities blocked in your life. And I've been fortunate, and many around me have been fortunate to participate in that. I think in the global economy here in the States, there are challenges to our country that threaten the American dream for future generations. And like every other country, we have to work on our competitiveness to maintain those opportunities by investing in education, investing in healthcare, and investing in our human capital. But for me, my father had his own business, and in fact, he hired many Serbs from the church who came to the country. He was an engineer, mechanical engineer, and they had a manufacturing firm. So my siblings and I kind of grew up on the factory floor. My father worked every day, not 5 days a week, but 7, and usually pretty late every night. And so if we wanted to see our dad, we would go with him to work on Saturdays and Sundays when we weren't in school, and we would play business. We would get on the phones and call each other. We'd go out on the factory floor and pretend we were going to ship some equipment off on a truck. And we learned visually about what it would be like to have a business. And interestingly enough, all 4 of us, I'm the oldest of 4, went on to start our own businesses. And so some would define that as the American dream. I went on from having my own business to running for politics, and now I'm back in the private sector. And so we all continue to evolve. But what I'm hopeful for is that the American dream continues to be made available to my children and their children and to really all American children. Well, as a kid, I was an avid reader. I wanted to read every book I could get my hands on, and sometimes my mother would yell at me to get my nose out of the book and pay attention to the real world. And I think initially I didn't see myself working in business. I thought I might be a literature professor or something like that. But my mother, being the practical one, encouraged me to learn how to type. This was before computers, and you needed an old typewriter, and you'd flip the typewriter back, and learn shorthand so I could take dictation if I was ever going to be a secretary, and I was convinced I never would be. But her advice really paid off, because when I was in college, I took a job as a secretary and happened to take that job at a very fast-growing high-tech company. And because I could type very quickly and very accurately, and because of my reading and my grammar skills, I could write a really good letter, I moved up very quickly in the organization because I could not only take dictation, I could improve the letter that someone had dictated to me and made them sound better than what they originally gave me, which was appreciated. And that put me on an upwardly mobile track within that company, which created all kinds of other opportunities that followed, where I went on to get into sales, where I went on to get into management, where I went on to start my own company. And I think with each success that you do have, it gives you greater confidence about what that next step is going to be. So when we talk about having a vision for where you want to go, sometimes it's a really long-term vision, but sometimes it's in steps. I want to get from here to there. And once you achieve that, you say, now where do I want to take it? And I think one of the greatest things about how our healthcare system has us all living longer, but also our education system allows us to continue to invest in our education and our skill development, is I'm 50 and I'm still trying to figure out what my next step is going to be. And that keeps it all interesting.